Hello, everyone. Welcome to Gfinity Arena Hearthstone Masters Spring. I am Nimsh and I'm joined by Admirable. And we've just seen Faramir win versus Farbat. Farbat is not eliminated, but there is another match we're going to cast now. It's Anara versus Solo. What can you tell me about those guys?
Well, these are two guys who both come from the open bracket, and both of them picking off, I think, some pretty decent wins for themselves right here. So Naro, I mean, this is if he wins this one, he's going to be moving on through groups. You know, 2 wins is what you need to move through the group stage. And a couple updates from elsewhere. Powder actually just eliminated Tice 3 games to 0 in a match they played. That was going to be playing one of the other stages, so that one was not.
Tice versus Anaro as well. So Anaro is like the guy who went through Tice, and now he just needs this one win,
Yeah.
one match to advance to the top 8.
Yeah, so it's a really important match for him to be able to get through that. I mean, getting through groups, obviously, it's probably one of the biggest humps that you have to go through as a player in this tournament. It's like group stages is oftentimes going to be one of the most difficult, in terms of like your mental fortitude, one of the toughest parts you have to get through. So definitely an important win for him. And I feel like he's kind of got something to prove here. You know, both these guys came through the open bracket, and you're like, oh, you came through the open bracket too, huh?
Yeah, it's always
Let me
the
show you how this stuff is made.
It's always the thing. Like you want to prove to those other recognized players that you're a guy who can beat there, like who can beat them, who can win, who can definitely prove himself. And you know, there's also money on the line. Like we have a $7,000 prize pool.
Oh yeah.
So this is something. This is good money to like you know to play cards here in London and have a lot of fun. So definitely important win for both players. And
yeah, staking a name for yourself is something that you need to do in these Hearthstone competitions, and this is a big one to be doing it at. $7,000 prize money, that's no joke for a weekend of Hearthstone, and it's not just from that weekend too, but they had to go through a lot of efforts to make sure they got here to that point. But game one is about to get underway, so let's waste no time getting into it. Anaro versus Sottle is going to be the first one. These guys' lineups coming with Warlock, Mage, and Paladin over on
Warlock, Mage, and Druid. So the only difference in the lineups is the Druid versus Paladin. Both players brought Mage, both players brought Warlock. But obviously those can be different matches. Right now, both players decided the players decided to go with Mage and with a Paladin as their openers. What do you think about that?
I again, sort of, Monk had a really good point when he touched on it earlier, where a lot of people were saying that what you play in Conquest doesn't really matter too much because you have to win with all 3 of your decks anyway. So if you get a bad matchup, that does give your opponent sometimes an extra win in a scenario where maybe that deck wasn't so good against everything else, but you still have to win with all 3 of your decks. So the first game, I think, does matter a little bit because it sort of sets the tone for it, but after that, not too much.
Oh yeah, certainly. It's good to randomize your decks, and Subtle decides to get to start with his Mage, which we can see is it doesn't look like a Mech Mage yet. It seems that it's more like a Tempo Secret Mage with both Portals and Medsantis. A lot of secrets, I would say.
Yeah, this could be like a nod to like the Grinder Mage decks that we've seen like Strife Crow play, for instance, is one of his favorite builds that he likes to play. And it's sort of just really, really heavily based around value. And since Mage has very efficient cards for making that sort of thing happen, you typically can get to that game plan if you don't get rushed down or don't get comboed out of the game or something along those lines. So against something like Paladin, I would expect it to function pretty much to exactly where it needs to be. But we really haven't seen enough cards, I think, to make a judgment one way or the other, but it looks to me like it's going to be more focused just around heavy drops and getting consistent board pressure and making sure that it keeps up at every step of the way.
Oh yeah, certainly. On the other hand, the Paladin has an aggressive start. He decides to go with the shielded mini bot turn 1. So on turn 2 he will have to make a token, but other than that he does have the Master for Battle. Oh, he picks up the Juggler. That's actually a huge draw with the Master as a
Yeah,
fall.
it's very rare that like a turn 2 drop ends up being such a perfect draw in a situation like this, but Knife Juggler really is huge right here. I mean, you look at everything that's going on. He basically just had not much to do outside of this turn, and he ended up getting now this. See here is Muster for Battle, and then this secret is like it's a mirror entity right now. So
yeah, so it's not doing anything.
yeah, Anaro's not getting. I'm sorry, Sottle's not really getting anything from this mirror entity for the current moment. He's just going to have to be content with sitting back and waiting. And Anaro's, I mean, he's sort of gotten like the heads up here, like, hey, by the way, I don't really have much, so kind of do what you need to do. And
Oh,
none of these are AoE spells.
yeah,
These are all
certainly.
single target removal, and pretty much you have 2 reasonable priority threats on the board right now with Knife Juggler, which gets taken out by the Frostbolt, and then this Hero Power. He doesn't have time to take out this shielded mini-bot. He has to keep going for these 1/1s turn after turn. So I wouldn't be surprised to see like this True Silver champion come down here, but not surprised to see him just make a token and keep the pressure up too.
Well, this is exactly what you talked about. Like, this mage deck has a problem when you're getting rushed down, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the True Silver champion either, but then he wants to protect his weapon for now. He does have a lot of options there. Also, like, concealing True Silver champion might be important in case of this Azure Drake as well, like, you know, not playing it, and maybe he is afraid of it, Harrison Jones, but I don't think so.
Yeah, Starving Buzzard, I can tell you what, I bet there's not a lot of beasts in this deck. Nimsh, I don't think he's playing Iron
Yeah.
Fist. I don't think.
Well, he does have a second unstable portal, so if he gets a beast from that, maybe he can start rolling
He
stuff.
just gets another Buzzard.
A web
and then
spinner?
a Youthful Brewmaster.
Web spinner would be good, you know. Just play one beast, get another, just combo it a bit.
Just why not? Hey, you know, that's a 2-cost Starving Buzzard, by the way. That's an unnerved one.
Oh, Blizzard has to fix it.
Yeah, just it's you know the thing that I think is most peculiar about this kind of board state is that Paladin is the only class that can really develop its board position without actually playing minions. You have stuff like Animal Companion and Unleash the Hounds that can do that, but there's not a ton of effects that can create this kind of pressure from basically nothing. And that's exactly what you're seeing. Now, that being said, he does have to worry about this mirror entity should this board position ever get checked. But I guarantee you Sottle right now is really, really worried about his life total because he is dipped very low and he's facing down 6 more damage next turn. And he's at 13, so half of his life potentially going to be lost.
He doesn't have any
It just-
taunt, he doesn't
yeah,
have
there's
any
no,
heal,
like a Sludge
no
Belcher,
AoE,
there's
nothing.
Like, yeah, it's just all of it is big single target style stuff and not really a lot to do with it. So
Would you consider fireballing the shielded mini-bot and pinging one of the 1/1s?
not overplaying Sylvanas, I wouldn't. And then just like Aldor Peacekeeper might have been like the perfect draw in a situation like this. And the reason it's a perfect draw is just because he needs something to get the mirror entity unchecked because he's got Pilot Sky Gloaming, he's got Dr. Boom. He wants to hit these big threats in stride, and because he has to keep this pressure up. Paladin doesn't have all the reach in the world.
Yeah, it's like you don't have those spells. Then Avenging Graph was cut from most of the decks, but still, you as a reach you do have this True Silver champion. That's potentially 8 points of damage that you're keeping. But obviously, you want to get Dr. Boom on 7.
Yeah, Frostbolt not too.
And there is
not too terrible here, but it's just he's got to get something done. I mean, this might be just a Starving Buzzard turn. This might be like Frostbolt attack, Starving Buzzard ping.
Well, you do have to stop the incoming damage, and again, there is not much burst from Paladin incoming. You are not suspecting an Avenging Graph. There was no True Silver champion on 4 and 5, so possibly if you start clearing, you might have a chance to do something.
Wow, Sorcerer's Apprentice is really, really like an unconventional card. I don't think I've seen this card actually played in a deck since like WCA.
I think this is actually in Striker's build as well, at least one of them.
All right, so now take a look at the board position that that Inaro's in right now. He's actually got 10 points of damage in his hand between the True Silver and the Consecrate, but he's also got this fantastic Dr. Boom play. Like, these Boombots are such a big threat right now. And again, it's just the pressure that's been created from this muster for battle has been on the board the entire game so far. This Mana Worm really could have been the difference between winning and losing the game early on.
Yeah, like getting a Flame Strike could possibly be a very different situation. We do have those Boombots though, and Sottle got down to 7 health. So even if Sottle is able to contain this board right now with this Dr. Boom, which we know he has no means to do it. Like, he can Fireball. Well, he can't even clear to get a good chance with Dr. Boom and those Boombots.
I don't really see a way out. I mean, he's got 6 points of damage between the True Silver and the Consecrate, so unless he has a way somehow in this that we're not seeing to answer every single threat that's on the board, this game is ended. And it's ended quite literally just from the early pressure of muster for battle, and it's being there the entire game.
Well, it actually started with Shielded Minibot getting coined, and then the top deck Juggler. It was like the very fast opening, the best aggressive opening that Paladin can get. It was so fast that he didn't even feel like playing the True Silver.
You know what else could have happened? He could have had... I wonder if he could have had the Boombot. Okay, so Boombot hit Sylvanas for 3, and then he stole Dr. Boom. Now he'd still be short. He still wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah, that's not enough there. Well, let's say Mana Worm at least tanked some damage, right?
Yeah, not going to be enough, though. And Inaro going to jump out to a quick 1-0 lead here with this Paladin deck.
Well, Inaro is on a roll. Like, he won versus Dice, and now he gets this 1-0 lead against Sottle.
Yeah, I would venture to say that Simon's not too upset about this. I mean, he does have a Druid and he does have a Warlock in his lineup, and depending on exactly how his Warlock is going to be built, Paladin might just line up very well against the decks that he's chosen to bring. So I don't think he's too upset about this. He still has his Mage, and I'm guessing this Mage is going to be more targeted at something like Warlock and something sort of like the slower mid-rangey decks, and something that doesn't really have the opportunity to present a lot of pressure on the board. So not the worst loss in the world for him. Plus his hand was really heavy that game. And when you just don't have any options and you didn't really feel like you got in a position where you made a bunch of mistakes, not the worst loss in the world.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like his hand was really clunky. With Mana Worm, I feel like he has this very fast opening with Mana Worm's Apprentices, maybe even Water Elementals, but he got all the secrets, all the spells, which doesn't allow. Like you want to get those cards later in the game. Like you want the Fireball on turn 7, maybe turn 8 to finish the game, not on turn 2 or 3.
Yeah, another big point about that too is he had Mad Scientist really early in the opening, and he got Mirror Entity off of it. But just sort of the nature of Paladin is they don't really have to cast that many minions once they have the tokens rolling, unless you can keep the tokens in check. And that was really, I think, the biggest difference of that. Knife Juggler certainly dealt a lot of damage, but I think the muster for Battle Pressure at the end of the day probably just would have been enough.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. So right now, Anaros Paladin is eliminated because he won a game with it. He's still down with his Mage and Warlock, and Solo can pick whatever he wants, like Warlock, Mage, Druid.
Yeah, I'm curious what he's going to want to run into Warlock and Mage. I would like to, again, just kind of see his Mage deck, because it feels like it could be built pretty well to deal with stuff like that. Game 2 is about to get underway, so we're going to see who he chooses to go with. Mage, I'm not surprised by it. It seems like he's very comfortable with this pick as well, so not too unsurprising to see this. Obviously, when someone chooses to bring Grinder Mage, they're usually pretty comfortable with it, because all things considered, it's a pretty complicated deck.
Yeah, it's a good deck versus most, and when you bring it, you still have to win the game. And as we said in the beginning, randomizing decks is fine, but then just picking the same deck is okay as well. On the other hand, Anaro having one of the best openings there.
Yeah, this is definitely a strong one. Cogmaster is already just a great turn 1 play, but when you couple that with another Cogmaster and a way to keep attacking, this game might get a little bit scary. The Mad Scientist is certainly going to help keep this in check, and I would be astonished if he didn't coin this out. So looks like it's just going to be stifled straight away, because as far as I can tell, Anaro's going to have to run into this Mad Scientist. Frostbolt may be an opportunity now as well.
Yeah, because he doesn't have a mech as a follow-up, so right now he probably will choose to attack into that Mad Scientist.
The one thing he can't do is he can't play Cogmaster and the Clockwork Gnome here and attack face, because if he does that, you can see ping on the Clockwork Gnome, and then he can just start trading into the Cogmasters favorably. So that's really the only one of them he doesn't want to make. I'm guessing Frostbolt, he doesn't anticipate it being too big of a value in this matchup, and that's probably why he's chosen to go with this way instead. The other thing, too, is that when this ping happens and this Clockwork Gnome comes down with this Cogmaster, it now creates this kind of intricate scenario with your opponent where it's like they want to ping something, but they're not clearing the board off from it. They need to be using their mana really efficiently. Like, is he going to ping again here? Is he just going to drop Mirror Entity?
I think that that decision is really good. You just deal with the Mad Scientist, you deal with the Mirror Entity, you create situations where you have minions on board, and this is a tempo game.
Yeah. That's the bigger point of this, too, is the tempo that he's generating with these plays. This is actually really smart.
He also has the mech now for the Blast Mage.
This is something else I wanted to talk about too, is the difference between pinging Cogmaster and pinging the Clockwork Gnome. So he saved a point of damage when his opponent has a mech by pinging the Cogmaster there, but then he gets Goblin Blast Mage, so he actually took extra damage by not taking out the mech.
It's kind of like a gamble. You have to make that decision. Like on 4, everything can happen. A Mechanical Yeti, a Piloted Shredder, a Blast Mage.
That Mirror Entity is actually a really important draw right now, too. I'd like to see him drop Cogmaster and Mirror Entity.
Yeah, it's a powerful play, especially because you haven't seen any small minions.
I am curious, though, how mindful he is about his opponent's Mirror Entities right now, because he knows that they're there. If he wanted to save something, like save the Cogmaster for a Mirror Entity, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, certainly.
I think the damage is probably worth more at the end of the day, but there's definitely merit to hanging on to it.
Well, at this point where you are ahead on damage and you have your own Mirror Entity, I like playing Cogmaster because you are ahead. You are the one having initiative. Whatever they play, it's getting copied. Like even if you get something small, this small creature is going to attack, and you do have that Fireball and Dr. Boom in your hand.
Yeah, once again, Zotto's hand just be clunky. Oh my gosh.
That's a clunker.
But there's a Mirror Entity down right now. So he has to check that.
Well, but what else can you do? Like you have I guess Mad Scientist is a play.
I don't think he really has another out. I think he just has to. he can't just run a Piloted Sky Golem into the Mirror Entity. That is just miserable.
But that's how do you value the portal then? Like, do you try to get?
I think he was trying to get something worthless almost.
Like a parrot or. He got something amazing, but now he's in trouble. I guess the Mad Scientist is his only play.
Yeah, if he got Goblin Blast Mage, it wouldn't have been that bad. He could play Piloted Shredder in the Blast Mage
yeah.
turn. Yeah, just going to favor pings. He's actually not even going to pop the Mirror into this turn, so.
Deny the mech. I like it as
he's
well.
just going to continue to I mean, it's pretty consistent with his game plan, too. The only issue I'm seeing is how clunky his hand is becoming as this continues to go on. And basically, the longer he delays popping this Mirror Entity, it's a trade-off. Like, your opponent's getting in some extra damage, but is it worth it? And you can see, actually, he's trying to... I feel like he's trying to fake this time rewinder a little bit. He's, like, thinking about, should I use this? Should I not? And there's obviously no reason for him to use a time rewinder.
It's a bluff.
Right, so, but it may be giving his opponent the impression that it's something like Whirling Blades instead.
Yeah, like a +1 attack well, not stealth, but just
a very small thing, but that could matter a lot. And then, obviously, the best pickup to counter Mirror Entity probably in the game right now is Zombie Chow. I mean, this one's so good, especially for him at 14 life right now. This extra 5 health is really going to make a difference if he can keep that in check.
Well, actually, this is game over if he doesn't kill any minions here.
Yeah.
Because he has exact lethal with the Zombie Chow. So if he plays this and pings, that's game.
Right, yeah. He actually doesn't have anything else to do after that.
Well,
wow, I didn't even notice that the 2 extra damage being the turn.
Yeah, Zombie Chow being lethal here.
Well, what can you do? I mean, that was the breaks. He's got to spot it though. So, well, just
can he spot lethal?
Just in case you couldn't tell.
Well, we've seen Anaro actually trading with minions before in the Dice game, but this is it. He spots lethal, and Anaro is going to win a second game, this time with his mage. So Anaro is left with his Warlock. He just needs to win with his Warlock deck. I believe it was a handlock, and Subtle in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, these have been some quick games so far, and you gotta start wondering to yourself maybe a little bit, like, is this mage deck? Is this really what I need to get it done? But I think he was really looking for the Warlock matchup there. I think his deck can fare okay versus Mage when he gets the right sort of draws, but again, his draw was just kind of clunky, and we saw another good opener. And
from Anaro, yeah.
And that's the kind of situation where that Mage deck is really going to struggle, is to early pressure. But that's such an important factor just traditionally throughout Hearthstone, is in the competitive side of things, you see the early pressure being such a big difference in winning and losing games, and that's really what's driving all the deck building at the high-level play.
True. And if he was looking for the Warlock matchup, he's going to find it now, because Anaro is going to pick his Warlock. And for Subtle, I guess it doesn't matter what he picks now. Like, he can continue with, he has to win with that mage eventually.
So here's the only thing I would think at this point is you've lost 2 games in a row with this mage deck, so you don't want to be putting yourself in a position where you feel like, gosh, I shouldn't have played the mage deck. I should have played something else. Like, kind of cool yourself off. You do still have to win with all 3 classes. I'd like to see him play something else and kind of move forward from there. Because not only that, his opponent also has a lot of information about what this mage deck is right now, so they're going to mulligan properly. And
yeah, but it's not going to change anyway.
It's not going to change, but sort of from your mindset, just kind of cool yourself off, keep on an even keel, make sure that those losses are not affecting your decision you're making moving forward.
Yeah, I think this is a very valid advice to the players as well. Like, a lot of players disregard mindset and like your own feelings, and we've seen players getting 0-3'd before, and or like 3-0, losing basically to with all their decks because they just continue playing one.
Yeah. So we're about to jump in this game right here. Game 3 is about to get underway. It's going to be match point for Anaro here. Gosh, I mean, this one's feeling rough.
Oh man,
well, pretty decent opener. I'm gonna guess you go with Shade.
Yeah, Shade versus. The question is if Subtle knows what kind of deck this is, because we've seen Anaro playing it. If Subtle made enough research, he knows that this is a handlock. With
well, this is sort of a telltale sign. I mean, Demon Lock doesn't play Zombie Chow too terribly often, I would venture to say, but Handlock is going to play it very often. What?
Oh, that's a small glitch. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So that is definitely a small glitch that's come up here. That Piloted Shredder actually costs 4 mana right now. I have no idea why that's appearing at 0 mana. It's just
it's a Warlock card.
Yeah, this is just some sort of bug that's happening right now. So kind of maybe I don't know. Maybe they're just taking Piloted Shredder out of the game. Who knows? Kidding. This is it's clearly a bug, and we're gonna move forward from here. That Piloted Shredder costs 4 mana right now, and it's not a Warlock card.
Yeah, we've seen that before. We've seen that Tyrion Forging being a Warlock card for 0 as well. But this is not a game bug. This is only observer mode, small glitch. So what's the situation here, Admirable? Handlock is just going to draw cards.
Yeah, Handlock's kind of just doing what Handlock does. He likes to draw cards and hopefully find one of its really big 4-cost threats, which it hasn't done right now. So that's pretty important. And Piloted Shredder going to make its way to the board. There's a Piloted Shredder somewhere on this board right now.
Yeah, just imagine a Piloted Shredder. All right.
And we're gonna go ahead and jump out of the spectator mode real quick, and we're gonna bring back the feed. It looks like so. Just bear with us for a moment. Sorry about this one. Not really. This technology, spectator client, these sort of things happen. We're getting the kinks worked out. We're rolling right back into this game. So unless there was a really big 4-drop draw on that turn, it looks like the Warlock's turn didn't have a ton of action. So yeah, just gonna go ahead and take out this with the looked like Dark Bomb and Mortal Coil. Is what it looked like to me. And so hands back.
All right, that's a 2-2 from Piloted Shredder. So
yeah, we've seen a lot of Defias ringleaders lately. I don't know about you of how much attention you've been paying, but I've seen a lot of Defias ringleaders.
I have a theory, because Onyxia is the one, like lore-wise, Onyxia was the one who made Defias actually leave Stormwind and fight for Stormwind, because Onyxia cheated them. That's why they pop in right now and try to fight Onyxia. And we see Onyxia in a lot of decks, freeze mages, and warriors.
You're just making stuff up now. Is this 6/6 Shade going to attack? That's a lot of pressure, but he's going to open it to stuff like Iron Beak Ouse and Coin Siphon Soul. He knows the coin's still on the other side. Mountain Giant is one turn late.
There is a Big Game Hunter just waiting for this Mountain Giant.
Yep.
Let's talk about this matchup overall. Who do you think has an edge here? Which deck has an advantage in this matchup?
I definitely at one point would have said it's Handlock, but since we've seen such a different evolution of Druid, like Piloted Shredder gives them so much more leverage in terms of attacking with the board. Just that coupled with a swipe is going to deal with Giants. But on top of that, they still play Big Game Hunter, so this is just another big swing. Now, the problem with this Big Game Hunter is that it's giving you such an awkward board turn. Like, you're just floating mana. Like, you get a hero power in here, but I mean, the hero power doesn't really matter that much right now, other than the fact that it can take out this 2-1 and protect your 5.
I would definitely be happy with this outcome. Having
I'm happy with this outcome. I'm just, imagine if this is 7-man instead. You see Big Game Hunter and Piloted Shredder hit the board, which is so much of a big, it's just such a big difference.
Yeah, but still, you can't be unhappy about killing the Giant. And overall, I think Druid has an advantage. Like, not only this game, this Druid does really well, but overall, Druid has an advantage in this matchup because you do have this Big Game Hunter, you do have Keeper of the Grove for Twilight Drakes, and you do have the combo. Yeah. So if Warlock is not able to establish a possible board, then you just run them over.
That being said, you will see a heavy variation, because when the Druid doesn't draw those cards, they fall behind a lot of times. But it really boils down to whether or not they can get the pressure on the board fast enough and then keep up that consistency.
Well, right now it seems that Sol is putting a lot of pressure on the Handlock player, and then we have double swipe in his hand. So even if there are taunts like Molten Giants, he can get him to Molten Giant range and then just finish the game with double swipe on turn 8.
He really thought about attacking with this Shade last turn, and I'm actually happy to see him save it, because if he keeps his opponent at sort of like this really dangerous life total where nothing's really happening, this Shade is like, it's an impending doom. And just the longer it sits there, the bigger of a threat it becomes, until a certain point where just unleashing a Shade and then 2 swipes will literally just be enough damage to kill him. And so we might be having some connection issues here. We noticed that this Ancient of Lore did not die quite yet.
It's just an immortal Ancient of Lore. It's so ancient, it's never going to die here.
Yeah, so we're going to give this a few moments here and see exactly where we go from there.
So how do you defend as a Handlock? You basically just...
well, the 4-drop slot is so important. And then how you go forward from there is just following up the 4-drop. So like when you get Big Game Hunter or something like that, it ends up affecting it. Yeah, so we're having another bug on our end, so we're going to go ahead and disconnect from this game and get it right back loaded up. That Piloted Shredder is causing it's wreaking some havoc right now, man.
Yeah.
So again, really sorry about this one, but this is just the way that sometimes the technology rolls out. So right back into the game. Let's see what's going on. We saw that Druid of the Claw got drawn, and I actually think that was an important one to make sure that he can move forward. So Sylvanas has also found its way to the board. That's what we saw last turn then. It was Coin Sylvanas was the play, just to try to get pressure on the board.
Well, this board certainly looks good for the Druid player. There is Jaraxxus being drawn, but he only has 7 mana. He will be able to play Molten Giant, but this game ends with double swipe, whatever happens.
Yeah, there's no heal in the hand here. So unless he wants to try to do something ambitious like life tap into Antique Healbot and then steal the Shade, it still wouldn't be enough. Yeah, I mean, it's still facing down 8 points of damage on the board, so this one looks like it's pretty much just done like dinner.
Seems like Sottle is able to take his first win with his Druid deck.
Yeah.
And Anaro, well, he will have to continue playing this Handlock. He only needs to win 1 game, but then, there are some bad matchups there. And I think like the mage we've seen for Sottle, actually should have a good matchup against this particular deck. So it might come down to Warlock versus Warlock for the whole series.
Yeah, I think that Mage deck is going to line up a lot better versus this Druid deck. I think he's just looking for not small early pressure, but just sort of like a single threat, efficient pressure instead. But Sottle happy to get a game on the board at this one, and that big game hunter really making a difference, a big difference.
Changing a huge difference, and changing the size of the board, just dying there. All right, so Anaro is going to lose this one. Sottle takes it. It's 2-1 for Anaro in total. And we are going to jump into the second game soon. Sottle still has his mage that we've seen and a warlock. Do you take this mage now? Like, I listened to your advice. He basically took something else to calm himself down to win a game, and now he's like on a. It's not a win streak, but he won the game.
I'm getting a point on the board. It's so important at this spot, but at this point, your opponent doesn't know what warlock deck you're playing, and so I feel like this is another good opportunity to like get something on the board with the warlock deck. Like, you know what you're playing against, you know how to mulligan. Your opponent isn't going to be aware of exactly your warlock build unless they've scouted you very well. So I think I would just like to see him go with his warlock deck again. And can kind of separate yourself from the mage for a moment. Put yourself in a good frame of mind and make sure that you have a clear head going into the last game, because those first two losses of that mage deck were pretty darn brutal. Game 4 is about to get underway right now. Let's see if he chose to go with that mage or not.
I like it. I like not taking the mage now. Yeah. And again, an interesting choice.
You can see here also he's got golden warlock, so this is a pretty heavy indicator that he's played this class quite a bit.
Oh wow!
And both these players are playing handlock too. I mean, this is something we saw fall out of favor for a very long time, but we're seeing it make an appearance here again.
I haven't seen this mirror match in the longest time. I think I've seen handlock versus handlock in June in Taiwan in the BlizzCon qualifier.
Well, at the very beginning of GVG, we saw it quite often. That was like one of the better decks that was out there.
Oh yeah, this was very
so. That was a very brief time there. Like, the evolution of decks happened very quickly after that. We saw Mech Mage really just kind of shove its elbow in everyone's eye socket and just go.
So maybe let's quickly go through this matchup. And in this matchup, it's important to get the Giant out, but then it's important to get the Big Game Hunter as well. I think the most important cards overall are Shadow Flame, Lothar, Molten Giants, because most of this is like a chess game. It's move and reaction. It's move after move, and both players, they do have the counters. There is no burst like in the past. There was Leroy Jenkins Faceless, but nothing like that is going to happen. So most of the matches that I win as a handlock is they get me low. I drop Moltens. I drop Lothar, and then I win next turn because they can't Shadow Flame it.
Yeah. So I mean, really important to watch out. Like, just like you said too, it's like move and react. It's move and react. Both of these guys have big game hunters right now, so Mountain Giant just happens to not be a good move. And it's not that they know that, but they know that when their opponent's life tapping and they're playing big game hunter, they're going to draw them fairly often. So it's a risk assessment sort of thing. So Anaro's looking at this right now and he goes, if this gets big game huntered, is that the worst thing that can happen to me right now? And frankly, I don't think it is. He's taken some damage here, but again, what you said, one of the biggest points that you make it to is you get yourself to a low life total, you Shadow Flame a Molten Giant, and you take over the board from there. So to sacrifice some health to make sure that this kind of job is getting done, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Plus, he has a great response to this board position. This Ironbeak Owl needs to be dealt with, and and pretty much the only efficient way to deal with it, he happens to have it, of course, is Mortal Coil. Though, like, you don't want to Dark Bomb an Ironbeak Owl. You don't want to run a 4-1 into an Ironbeak Owl.
Yeah, also, like, playing with your life is actually fine with you. You want to drop low. You want to drop to around like 12 to be able to play those Molten Giants as the first player. But on the other hand, right now, Sottle has an advantage. He has that Big Game Hunter he was able to clear. He got this Twilight Drake, which was a huge top deck for a moment. He has his Mountain Giant. So for now, it really looks good for Sottle.
This turn 6 looking pretty good.
Defender Vargas, that's important as well. He will be able to trade with this Belcher really easily.
I think before this, I want to talk. Let's pretend he didn't draw that Defender Vargas for a moment and take a look at that Mountain Giant. We saw Big Game Hunter happen on this side of the board, but how important is it to not get Big Game Hunter here? Does he feel comfortable with it because he would have had such a big Twilight Drake anyway?
If there was no Defender Vargas, I think
Defender Vargas is clearly this is the strongest player.
Yeah, definitely. But then if you have this kind of board, I think without Defender Vargas, you can risk Mountain Giant because you know if there is a Big Game Hunter, you want the Big Game Hunter out of the way eventually. So the earlier you get it out of the way, the better for you. And you have this Ragnaros as well in your hand. So with no Defender Vargas, I will be fine with playing Mountain Giant. But here, obviously, he has a huge board, and there is there an AoE in Anaro's hand? There is no AoE I can see.
Yeah, it looks like 2 Sunfury Protectors. So we just
Wait, it's almost like
Take a look at
game
this.
right now.
It's
That's
getting pretty darn close. I mean, this is 12 points of damage sitting on the board right now. So he needs a little bit extra reach, but he's getting close there. So I mean, take a look at Big Game Hunter, Molten Giant Defender, 2 Sun Furies, both of them an anti-heal bot. So I mean, getting a lot of just stuff to kind of fortify board position. Not a lot of reaction in his hand right now, other than the Big Game Hunter, which his opponent seems to be doing a pretty good job of not running into so far.
Big Game Hunter going to kill 1 Giant and Dr. Boom. That's actually pretty sick. And it's also important how Dr. Boom, how powerful the card is. He played Dr. It seems like Solo had an advantage. He was ahead, easily winning the game, but then Dr. Boom is being dropped, and now it's a weird spot. How do you kill this board? How do you trade? Like, you have to trade, you can't go face.
This is the only thing I do like about Dr. Boom is how he changes the board dynamic, but I really do think that boom bots are a little bit much on the damage side of things. Like, the 4 damage boom bots are just so brutal sometimes.
Well, it didn't matter that much this time, but
Yeah.
yeah, like 4 damage boombots killing and a Shade of Naxxramas or Azure Drake for free is just too much. Oh, there is a second Big Game Hunter.
Big Game Hunter. He doesn't have any targets though.
Yeah,
And look at his hand. What does he do? Is he gonna just drop Loatheb and let it die to the 5/3 Drake?
that's the problem with double Big Game Hunter. Like, sometimes they are amazing, but most of the time there are no targets, and they are just stuck. Jungle Panthers.
Don't even have stealth. Poor Jungle Panther. I used to play Jungle Panther actually. We in the Face Hunter decks because we took out Animal Companions and we just put in Jungle Panthers. Like, it's gonna get in 4 damage. We called him Ninja Huffer.
Ninja Huffer.
he's like crouching up. And he's like,
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Wow. Solo can actually go
Oh
for.
my gosh.
I was thinking about Ragnaros for a moment. At Ragnaros 50/50 would be 1 damage of lethal,
well,
so
I
probably
think
not.
I think something he doesn't want to do right now is activate Molten Giants. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. So he's put him at 17. 17's like a pretty much a magic number right now. And if he plays this Mountain Giant, I would be pretty surprised if this Sludge Belcher attacked. Yeah, he's just gonna pass the turn. And this feels like more than enough pressure to actually kill Anaro next turn. So he definitely is mindful of this board position, how he deals with it. So
Well, on the other hand, if he puts Ragnaros and hits the face, gets him to 1, gets the Molten Giants, then he can play Mountain Giant and Shadow Flame and get rid of those Molten Giants. So that was kind of like a strategy as well.
yeah.
Well, here it's still good for Solo. One of the Big Game Hunters will have to be dropped, but then again, that's 3 points of mana, so not much mana left, especially if you tap as well.
Has to kind of continue to put himself at low health as well. I mean, he really, really wants to get to his Molten Giant turn.
Yeah, that's the thing that you want. Like, Savitz even advised at some point in Handlock versus Handlock to heal your opponent with Farseers.
I remember when that used to be like actually a really important part. Neither of you really attacked each other. You just kind of sat there. So both players have access to Shadow Flame. Both players have access to big minions right now. But this is, I mean, at 15 health, this is that sort of dangerous point where it's like, do I want to deal him any more damage right now?
Yeah, it's really awkward. Do you Siphon Soul the 4/5 taunt, trade the 2/2 into 4/2, then
I don't think so.
It's
I think this
clear.
is going to be like a building turn where he's not too concerned about attacking, and he's more concerned about finding a way to Shadow Flame his opponent's board eventually. Or just use Siphon Soul to try to gain leverage. Like, take out an important target, something like Ragnaros, and hope to get leverage from that just by buying extra time.
Well, Anaro is actually low on cards, and because he only has 7 cards.
Yeah, I was like, well, low on cards is, relative.
In this match, yeah, it is low. Alright, so he's going to Shadow Flame the Belcher.
What just happened? There we go.
Alright, attack or not to attack. It's so tricky to attack Handlock if you suspect the Molten Giants. And
I don't think you can attack here. Like, it doesn't make sense to attack really. I mean, you're not putting your opponent any closer to lethal really, because the only reach you have is Ragnaros. So until your opponent is at like the 8 range, it doesn't. I don't know.
If there is a Dark Bomb, there's no Dark Bomb for now, but there is Ragnaros.
I mean, I can see some merits to this, but I think I would favor just not attacking in this spot because you've stressed the importance of getting a big swing turn.
Yeah.
And the biggest swing turn that Handlock has is typically involving a Molten Giant. So the closer you put them to that range, the closer they have to having big swing turns. This is what you're trying to avoid, I assume. So unless he just feels like that this isn't the kind of board that he can get pressured on, and he wants to actually just Siphon Soul a Molten Giant, like maybe he's trying to trap him into playing one, I think that could be pretty reasonable.
Yeah, it's the biggest reason to actually get them to get him to Molten Giants, especially because he has Siphon Cell as well. He won't be really able to get the Molten Giant Shadow Flame on his end. Oh, well,
No,
not yet.
it costs too much mana, so...
Yeah, it's too much mana, but still. Oh, well, Molten Giant is a good card here. Anyway, you want to have one at least in your hand. But this is a difficult turn. There is no Iron Beak. There is only one Siphon Cell. You can Siphon Cell the Giant, but do you want to do that?
Yeah, Iron Beak's not even really too terribly effective here, because he's still got to get past the 8-power Giant. So if he had Siphon Soul and Iron Beak, it would be okay. But just kind of sitting as it is.
Shadow Flaming the 4/5 doesn't matter. There is a Dark Bomb. That's
yeah, I don't think he has intentions to Shadow Flame this turn, or I really do. I think I think that you're seeing the Ancient Watcher come on the board as like I need to get this down in case I have to use it.
I like Siphon Cell because how many other targets are there? He dealt with one Giant.
Yeah, he dealt with a Giant. He dealt with Dr. Boom.
Dr. Boom.
He hasn't dealt with Ragnaros yet.
Alright, so other than that, if the board is getting cleared, well, the board won't get cleared next turn, but there is like a lot of damage in Subtle Scan anyway with that Dark Bomb and Ragnaros. He still has a lot of options, and the Shadow Flame Molten Giant.
Still looking for a big turn. Ooh, Jiraxis.
Oh, there's Jiraxis, but he won't be able to play it this turn.
Yeah, both players have Jiraxis now. I actually really like the attack on the Ancient Watcher here. This is something that I remember very early on it was just laughed at to attack an Ancient Watcher. But it happens so often now just because it's such an important piece of the puzzle. Like, you don't want to get Shadow Flamed by an Ancient Watcher in a really key spot. And so,
wow,
just taking that... Oh,
that's a great card. Hellfire is going to clear this, get him lower.
Wow. I mean, it gets his opponent lower too, though.
Yeah, but it's fine because you've seen one Molten Giant, so you don't care about it that much.
Okay, he's not dropping the Molten here, right? He's got to drop the Sludge Belcher, right?
Yeah, Sludge Belcher is the play, I believe.
I mean, it could... I mean, there's
well, you've
also,
seen one Big Hunter already.
There's some merit to life tapping, but I think you got to get the Belcher on the board.
Yeah, you want some board that's tough to deal with. And dropping Molten Giant had some sense, but on the other hand, you want to keep that Molten Giant for the Shadow Flame turn.
Yeah, I don't think Jiraxis is a reasonable play here. You have to just get something rolling.
It still doesn't seem that Anara has a good hand here. He does have a couple of options, but it's not great, especially the Zombie Chow being a dead card later on.
Well, I don't really know if it's dead that here. I mean, if Zombie Chow heals his opponent for 5, he is taking him out of Molten Giant range.
I actually agree. This is so weird.
This is, I mean, this is kind of what makes these matchups cool. Is that sometimes you get in these spots where you're like, oh, you think you're gonna be able to kill yourself, huh? No, I'm gonna heal you.
No Molten Giants for now. He decides not to play that Zombie Chow though. It still presents some merit. It pretends to be an important card in his hand.
That isn't. I mean, that does make your opponent think. You're like, certainly that can't be a Zombie Chow, right? He's been hanging onto this card for a couple turns now.
There is a Sylvanas pickup. That's a very important card as well. Sylvanas and Shadow Flame being able to sweep the board.
Wow, he's actually gonna go for face pressure too.
Well,
a little
I like
dangerous.
I like it.
Oh!
He didn't like it.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. Molten Giant is a huge draw again. I'm stealing the phrase from you. Well, he definitely wanted to hit the Twilight Drake, but getting face, it's not that bad. He can clear the board with Sylvanas Shadow Flame, whatever happens.
Yeah, I don't really know if I like the Ragnaros here because the shot to face can backfire so often. He's going to go with Big Game Hunter. I mean, he had the option to Shadow Flame here, too.
Is he going to drop the Molten Giant? If he does...
Yeah, you could see... Well, this is actually... Okay, so this slime is actually really important this turn because it's going to make sure that this Twilight Drake dies to a Shadow Flame on Sylvanas if that's what he chooses to use, which, I mean, I would...
That's a perfect turn.
I'd be pretty shocked if he didn't blow up his opponent's board and take his 8-3.
Yeah, that's the second Molten Giant to take.
Imagine if that's what Mind Control did.
Wow. Well, yeah, that would be a very powerful turn.
Take notes, Priest players.
I don't think there is anything else you can do here.
Oh, there's plenty of stuff he could do. He could just taunt up an anti-heal wad if he wanted to.
Yeah, but do you really want to? Like,
no,
you can also...
You really don't. You really want to use Sylvanas and Shadow
Yeah, just clear and take the Giant. Come on. And now Anara is actually down to 4 cards only.
This is looking a little bit brutal. I think you're going to have to see a return Yellow Rag.
Yellow Rag, come on. Again. Well, it worked last time.
Versus, sort of.
versus Dice.
Oh, that one definitely worked.
Yeah, that one worked.
Yeah,
that was Anara winning
the
versus Dice.
33% one. Yeah.
So Solid is slowly climbing back versus Naro. It seems like he has an advantage. This match is not over yet, but my money is definitely on Solid here.
I don't see. I mean, if you life tap something like Dark Bomb, both these players are getting really low on cards too. It's important to see. I mean, this is 6 cards to I think probably 7 cards, yeah, which is the animation's a little bit off, but there has to be some sort of consideration of getting too low on cards and not actually being able to finish your opponent too.
Yeah, at some point you just have to start thinking, how do I win this game?
Yeah.
And playing Jirax is playing Jiraxxus an option? Just getting yourself to 15.
Wait, just go to 7. Because he has to attack the Molten Giant if he does
yeah,
that.
then you can't draw cards. You can only play with what you have. Like, you draw 1 card each turn. You can't life tap anymore.
It's funny that last turn playing that Molten Giant actually may have lost him this game.
Yeah.
Like, had he held on to the Molten Giant for something like a big Shadow Flame turn, it actually might have been more beneficial in his hand. Wow, he's going to go for Jiraxxus.
He has more courage than me. I would go for life tap Ragnaros possibly, but...
You face Jiraxxus. Well, Jiraxxus is down to 7. And in Soviet Russia, Jiraxxus faces you.
Sick.
I mean, you just return Jiraxxus and just whack him for 4?
Well...
I think Dr. Boom's a little bit better, but...
Yeah, it is. Alright, so I think Jiraxxus is worse. No, you definitely play Dr. Boom here.
Do you play Dr. Boom? Do you just taunt up one of the Boom bots, too? I think you taunt up one of the Boom bots. I don't think you ever
why would you do that? Oh.
Well, I don't want to taunt the Dr. Boom in the rare instances that my opponent has Black Knight.
I would say I'm expecting a Siphon Soul here. Oh my god, he actually picks Sylvanas.
Well, he's got to not die to the Boom bots.
Yeah.
First, so.
That might be the only. That is the only play here.
Oh gosh.
Oh man,
the low rolls on Boom bots. Boom bots can just outright end the game.
The Boom bots can just win right now.
Oh jeez.
This is not the end of the match I expected.
He's gonna take a 7-1 if he doesn't die.
All
this
right.
is so important.
Boom bots 2.
Oh,
he survived somehow.
Well,
and he gets a taunt. He gets a taunt as well.
I'm making the quotey fingers. He's survived for now, but there are a lot of cards in this deck that can outright kill him. That's not one of them.
Wow. It's okay. He can taunt up, but then this is so awkward. Like, this game, I think Anara can still win.
I think you just taunt up the Ancient Watcher with an antique heal bot on the side.
Yeah. Solo has to taunt up.
I mean, your opponent's got 2 power threats they have to deal with. So you drop the Ancient Watcher, you drop Sudden Fear Protector, you drop the antique heal bot. You have enough threats to get this.
And you have enough health as well.
Yeah. But he does want to get the Molten Giant active too, though. But is there any consideration to, like, playing around the possibility of your opponent playing their own Molten Giant and then Shadow Flaming out? Or has he seen both the Molten Giants?
Yeah, we've seen both Molten Giants. So both Molten Giants are out. 1 Molten Giant is out.
Yeah. He should not be taunting up the 8-power Molten Giant. I think that is strictly an error.
Hellfire. Yellow fire.
Well, he can kill himself if he wants to.
Can he deal with this Molten Giant right now? With Shadow Flame? Not really.
It doesn't. I mean, he can make an Infernal and Shadow Flame away
and attack the 7 with 7
I mean, this is the only way he has to actually live. I'm pretty sure.
No, but then he's dead to Jiraxxus attack.
Well, I mean, he is, but he has no way to know that. But regardless of which, this game is going to get tied up now, or this series is going to get tied up in 2 games
what a comeback!
apiece.
What a comeback! Solo actually tying up versus Naro, and we are going to see
Jiraxxus does face you.
It does.
Golden Jiraxxus is better than regular Jiraxxus. This match confirms it.
Well played. And we are going to see the Mage deck again.
Oblivion! Yeah, Mage is going to be that deck that's the go-to, but I think if there's a matchup where it's pretty good, Warlock's definitely going to be it. But, again, the deck is so tough to play. I want to see how he navigates it in this matchup.
Yeah, that will be certainly interesting to see if this Mage deck is going to be Solo's demise, or if it's going to carry Solo to win the match.
Falling 0-3 with a kind of an unconventional deck that you would bring, not going to be the greatest feeling ever. So I really hope that's a situation he can avoid for his own sake. At the very least, have a good game with it. I want to see both players draw some reasonable hands, have some interesting situations, and go from there. As far as like the competitive matchup for this, I think Handlock is exactly what he wants to have. He doesn't have to put a lot of pressure on his opponent's face. He's very focused on dealing with threats and making sure that he can make the most out of his sort of mid-range size threats that he has. Stuff like Sylvanas, stuff like Sludge Belcher, duplicating those threats, having Mirror Entity pressure your opponent's tempo plays so that it buys you time to find the right removal spells. All that stuff really matters. And this has to be the situation he was looking for.
Also, the opening in the card draw, like he needs to open with Mana Worm and Mid Scientist gets some damage done before Handlock actually starts wheeling, and then use the spells to finish the game.
Do you think that's going to be his plan in this? Because I feel like he's just going to be focusing on actually grinding out his opponent. Because when StrifeCrow played a deck like this, and sort of when you saw Fatigue Mage playing against Handlock,
Yeah.
About a month and a half, 2 months ago,
The DreamHack
you were seeing people just not ping their opponent on turn 2, and it's because they wanted to keep them as far away from Molten Giant for as long as they possibly could. So to see him pressure it, I think there are some hands that could influence that, but I would be a little bit surprised if that was his actual game plan going into it.
Well, it really depends what he has in the deck. Like, we haven't seen everything, but whenever I play Mage versus Warlock, I like the fact to have like a very fast opening and then just finish them with spells before they are able to heal. But this was before Healbot, so Healbot might change the dynamic of that match.
Yeah.
There's a couple of strategies. We'll see what Sol actually comes up with, and we'll see his hand. The game is ready to start.
Game 5 versus Sottle and Anaro. Match point is on the line, and one of these players has a chance to solidify their 2-win point in this group. Such an important hump to get over.
Yeah, the winner advances,
Wow,
and the loser has to win one more game.
Hand too. Zombie Chow I don't think is the most important card in this matchup, but again, I think just keeping your opponents far away from Molten Giants actually matters a lot.
I think this hand is really good for Sottle. A start with a minion, then you have Unstable Portal, you can coin Pilot or Shredder on free, or even play the Entity to counter the turn 4 play as a handlock, which you said is very important. Wow, double Pilot or Shredder and an Azure Drake, that's a really good hand for this deck.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him coin Mirror Entity, but I would certainly would favor Unstable Portal.
I would be
You're just
surprised.
not getting a better turn to actually cast the card and hold this in your hand. He gets a 2-mana.
That's a 4/6 for 2 mana, that's something big and good. But
he doesn't get it this turn, but the potential to have big tempo turns later on with this actually makes a big difference.
Alright, let's see what a Handlock has. Handlock has the Twilight Drake, he has the Giant, I believe. Yeah, I've seen the Mountain Giant, so it's not a bad hand as well. He has some board control, he has the heals, some taunts. A second Ancient Watcher might be important as well, because when you set up double Ancient Watcher with a taunt, it's really hard for the mage to go through them.
Yeah, Earthring Farseer are going to be a pretty decent counter to this Mirror Entity. Make sure he doesn't get too out of hand. Ancient Watcher's also a pretty good one, but I think he's happy to get the heal in and make sure he's not going to fall too far behind.
Alright, so here Solo is probably just going to trade and develop a Pilot Shredder. Oh, is he going for duplicate?
Yeah, if he's going to go for duplicate, he's probably going to focus on the game plan that you mentioned, where he's going to favor face damage a lot. Also, if he plays duplicate, I anticipate the coin and Spiteful Smith afterwards.
He can possibly have 5 mana.
I don't know, but actually that doesn't make any sense because he's got the Zombie Chow and he doesn't want the Zombie Chows to get duplicated.
Yeah.
So no, he would probably coin in Frostbolt if he chose to play the duplicate. Or he would trade in the Earthring Farseer. You still leave the Zombie Chow around.
You can actually just Frostbolt and develop a 4/6.
Yeah, that's fine too.
I like this turn as well.
There's so many different things to do this turn. This is what makes this deck so hard, is there's so many different ways to navigate it, and frankly, without having a lot of experience under your belt, it's very difficult to determine which one's right in certain kinds of situations.
Yeah, it also really depends what kind of build you have and what cards. It seems like this is more of a tempo deck that curves out into those big Dr. Booms, and maybe he had Ragnaros, do we remember that?
I'm pretty sure Ragnaros could very likely find its way in here. I don't recall seeing one. Just
Yeah.
a funny point. I imagine like someone tuning in to the stream like just now and seeing the Spiteful Smith on board and being like, okay, what's going on?
A new metagame.
Yeah, he's got a Blingtron in here, and that's why he's got the Spiteful Smith. No, kidding. He had Unstable Portal let him play.
Alright, so for Handlock it's a difficult turn. You can't really clear. You just develop a Giant or Twilight Drake. Are you afraid of BGH?
I think you're more afraid of something like Fireball or Polymorph just being a huge impact. Does he even need this Unstable Portal right now? This is such a good draw, but look at his hand. It's just like he has everything in the world at his disposal.
Well, I like the Portal.
Yeah, I like casting him basically as early as you can. You know, having the access to the information of what a random element is makes a big difference.
And that's a free Grizzly Bear.
Iron
Well,
for
a free
Iron for Grizzly at 2 mana is not bad. Grizzly, I'd probably play this card a lot more.
Yeah,
often.
that's a lot of value there. And he can still coin the Pilot Shredder as well. The only question is like how much board do you want to have against the possible Ancient Watcher Shadow Flame?
Well, I think he's going to make sure that this is getting thwarted as heavily as possible. I think he's okay with losing the Spiteful Smith right now. I would be a little bit surprised if he chose to play the Ironfur Grizzly here. Again, just good to save it as a tempo play. Like, really offset your opponent's game plan. If you play the Ironfur Grizzly here, they may have just set up for a big board clear, so it won't get too much done. But if your opponent, you know, put something on the board and is kind of preparing to deal with one threat at a time, and then you throw this 0 mana 3/3 taunt in the way, that can just completely mess up their game plan. So I like that he's holding on to it here.
Well, it's also he's playing around Hellfire, so that was a pretty good call on his side. Lightwell, not that great versus Handlock.
I'm trying to think of so many classes that Lightwell actually is a really good grab against.
It is a good card when you are in an aggro versus aggro matchup. Oh, a Flame Cannon.
So we are again seeing this this small spectator mode bug. That Flame Cannon costs 2 mana and is not a Warlock card right now.
And then Ironfur Grizzly.
The Ironfur Grizzly does cost 0 right now because that was unstable portaled. So that one's not a bug.
Are you sure?
I'm close to sure.
All right.
I can't be sure of anything anyway. This is Hearthstone, all right? You can't be sure of anything in this game.
All right, so give us just a second. We are going to come back and fix this Flame Cannon.
We can leave it be for now, I think. It seems like it's good.
It's good till it's played.
Once it's is that how the spectator mode works?
I think the glitch works this way.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here.
All right, so there is another giant, Sylvanas pickup, which is nice. But then Sodal is in a weird spot. Like, you do have those minions, you do have this this Flame Cannon.
Zombie just really throwing a wrench, and so is the Ancient Watcher.
It does.
You're like, I really don't want to kill those two things right now.
So you just go to develop the board with Azure Drake and try this Flame Cannon?
No, I think that would be a little bit much right now. I don't know, maybe he will try to do that, but
this Lightwall, by the way, is countering his duplicate. Like, duplicate in his hand is so worthless right now.
Exactly. Lightwell's not good against anything. Sorry, all you Divine Spirit Interfire guys.
Alright, I think Sylvanas is actually the play here, because it's not like Ancient Watcher is going to threaten you, Zombie Chow is not threatening you as well, and this giant will have to do something. So
I don't know if Sylvanas actually is a play, and what I'm looking at is when he steals one of these other two minions, he's putting himself in the exact same kind of situation where his duplicate isn't going to get value in situations like that. So I think he's trying to hedge his bets against pulling out one of these terrible cards.
Oh yeah, like killing Zombie Chow is definitely correct. But then Sylvanas is the play because you should be, if there is no Iron Beak, you are putting your opponent in a weird spot. Like with Siphon Soul, you have a 50-50 to steal the giant. If the giant attacks Sylvanas, you have still a 50-50 to steal like a 5-3.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are no good like Sylvanas targets, so it makes a lot of sense. He would really like to see something like
Dr. Boom. Not really, not now.
Yeah,
Iron Beak.
2/3 is fine. I was trying to think of something that'd be really terrible
Oh,
for
here
the mage player here.
from the Shredder.
I feel like the worst thing that could have happened for him is probably Doomsayer. It always feels like it's the worst thing that can happen is Doomsayer.
Lord Walker Cho. Many times Lord Walker Cho was the worst card.
So bad for a Gnarl right now too. That one's not too shabby. Shadow Flames, I think, are going to be really important in this matchup. And
So he's just going to spawn the board here. I wonder if Sodal is playing
wow,
with Flame
this
Strike.
is like really dangerous.
It's one of the ways to play around Sylvanas. Kind of, if you don't know how to deal with her, you just ignore her and spawn the board, and play around her. But on the other hand, he did kill that Lightwell.
I feel like Sodal is like kind of glad that
Yeah, the Lightwell is
might
done.
have died in this situation. It can no longer get duplicated.
So 8 mana, you still have the free Grizzly, and is there any merit in... Well, wait, you can actually kill your own Sylvanas here easily, but then maybe you can start with a Flame Cannon first?
Why is he doing that attack? I'm genuinely confused.
Because he's going to play Duplicate.
Okay, yeah, duplicate. It makes so much sense when as soon as he grabbed the duplicate, I was like, yes, we were just literally talking about this.
Yeah, the Lightwell is out, Sunfield Protector is out, so Duplicate is going to duplicate the Belcher. But then again, Sodal doesn't have much burst. He only has the Flame Cannon, Azure Drake, and a free Grizzly that he refuses to play for so many turns. But yeah, like in this situation, you obviously don't play it because of Duplicate.
Just holding on to it for the right turn. Eventually, that Ironfur Grizzly is probably going to end up soaking up like a Jiraxxus attack, and that Hero Grizzly is going to win the game. That's what I'm doing right now.
Hero Grizzly. Yeah, that's a very ferocious bear right there.
Rawr.
All right,
Look
so
at him.
there's
Every time he shouts in that golden animation, watch him. Wait for it. Wait for
it actually roars. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there's like roar. So who do you think is winning right now? I think like Handlock is in a good spot, even though the Sylvanas is super annoying for him. He tries to get that silence.
In these really long-winded games, I would tend to say that it's going to favor Warlock, and I think it's like one of the biggest strengths of Warlock is that hero power gives it so much leverage versus everything else. So while I think that oftentimes it will lose the early game and sometimes can lose its board position and just kind of get blown out, I mean, you can't utilize life tap when you're getting pressured very, very difficult, or when you're getting a lot of pressure put on you. I don't know how to say that sentence for some reason.
The flame cannon is probably going to get casted. Yeah.
So this bug's all right. So let's go ahead and rejoin the game real quick right now. Nimsh was spot on with his 0 mana Warlock card spectator bug analysis. So we're gonna jump right back into it. But yeah, unless Warlock's getting pressured so hard that it can't utilize its hero power, it typically is winning a game, I would say.
Yeah, so right now it really goes.
Oh well,
wow.
I mean,
Okay,
you know,
the situation changed.
Kind of missed a big one as we just got back there, but Sylvanas gonna steal this Mountain Giant, and we're gonna get right back to it now. But you know, there is some counterplay available.
Well, there's still Sylvanas, Shadow Flame.
Well, I'm looking at that big game hunter.
Yeah, Big Game Hunter is still great.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there are normally not many targets in the mage deck, and now Big Game Hunter actually makes some sense here.
Yep. So still not even that bad for him.
Anara playing double Big Game Hunter, which is
gonna life tap again, up to 10 cards. And this is sort of the pressure that I was talking about. It continues to build turn after turn after turn. And unless you can just run the Warlock out of threats, they have more access to options. And we've seen it forever. Like, the player with more options is typically the one who's going to end up winning the game. Even the second Ragnaros checked. He's got a second big game hunter in hand right now.
And you do play Ragnaros probably because you've seen one. Even though you know there is double Big Game Hunter, you might risk it. But then again, as you said, it's like Warlock was under no pressure. The board was awkward, but that's it. Like
I don't think he wants to drop the Ragnaros because in certain situations he ends up just losing it. Like Shadow Flame but that's such an important threat in your deck right now that you don't want to lose it to something like a Shadow Flame where your opponent just continues to kind of draw cards and get their board position set up.
You might need the Ragnaros as your win condition.
Yeah, I think he just needs to find some more answers, but I'm not sure how much card draw is actually in this deck. We've seen, like, Duplicate is effective card draw, but it's not quite the same as digging to your answers.
Sometimes there is Arcane Intellect, but then even if you get well, Azuric is a good card here because he will be able to draw a card. But then even if he gets a Fireball, he won't be able to really deal with this Giant. Frostbolts and then attack. Oh, he gets a Warlock Fireball for 0.
This bug is going to continue to haunt us as this day rolls on.
I would play this Fireball in my Warlock deck.
Would you now?
I definitely would.
I mean, I guess it'd be okay.
So Subtle going to apply some 0 mana cards. I actually think this Grizzly is never going to get played. Like, he got really disappointed by the bear. Maybe he's like afraid of bears, and right now he just holds it.
What if his grandpa was just taken out by a bear, and you know what? I hate bears, and I'm not playing this iron for a Grizzly.
Ever. I'm going to win this match without the cheating Grizzly.
So Shadow Flame's outright. Okay, so this is for the Mortal Coil. I was wondering why he just outright Shadow Flamed, but it's because he wanted a Mortal Coil.
And there is another bomb for Warlock. He can still play Lothab, and the Giant is online.
Yeah, that Fireball's going to go up to 5 mana next turn. Oh, it goes to 9 mana now. Come on.
Oh, it got fixed. Interesting. Well, with 9 mana, he can't even... Well, I guess he can kill the Giant.
See, this feels like a good turn to drop Ragnaros to me.
Why not Fireball the Mountain Giant?
Because it costs 9 mana.
Yeah, but you still kill the Giant,
Yeah,
and you can also
you gotta do something to get the board rolling, though. I feel like you can Fireball the Mountain Giant and run the Slime in, but you have to do something to start rolling the board over. This is like the highest value Ragnaros turn you're gonna get. You have 2 main targets. If you miss one of these targets, like I mean, just chalk that one up at that point. But you're so far behind. You're behind on cards. You're behind on board. You have to do something. And where do you take your risk? And with a hand that's constructed like this, he doesn't really have another opportunity to do it.
True. There is there are those high value targets, but on the other hand, if he gets face, he will be in a very bad spot.
I think You're okay with that one. He's going to go with Ragnaros here, and he's aiming for that Mountain Giant.
Do you develop the
what.
Grizzly now? I think you might.
I mean, you might just to keep the Ragnaros protected as long as possible. This may have been what he was waiting for, too.
He's going to ping.
I'm really surprised he chooses to ping the...
I greet you. A bit of BM there.
Could be Flame Strike. Flame Strike definitely could be on his mind. Ironfur Grizzly finally makes his appearance. This Ragnaros
and
shot.
he hits face.
Oh, that one stings so much.
Especially because there is a second Big Game Hunter going to haunt this Ragnaros.
Oh, gosh. It's so brutal. He also pinged the Slotha because he doesn't want it to trade easily into the Ironfur Grizzly, so next turn he is threatened by another ping.
Yeah, he can ping it again. Well, with this situation, Anaro has a real advantage, and Fireball somehow got fixed, even though it's still a Warlock card. But you know, it's not. Those are not the cards that finish the game.
Oh gosh! And then Molten Giant. You know, if he draws another Fireball,
that's it.
Yeah,
but there is a heal bot.
Frostbolt will do it now too. Oh, there's a heal.
Yeah,
I didn't see heal bot.
There's a heal bot, so.
These crazy upside down cards.
Well, he can't really draw into anything here, so I think this game is over, and Solo is going to crumble against this handlock. But what a match! Like, he was able to come back to play this last Mage versus Warlock, but this Mage deck, man, like, this is the demise of Solo.
Yeah, going 0-3 with, you know, that's something that's been talked about a lot. Is in Conquest, one of the good strategies isn't to necessarily play 3 decks that are very, very good, but to play 3 decks that don't get 3-0'd very easily, and you're just trying to pick up wins as kind of as you go along, and like, sort of like eventually this deck's gonna win a game.
Yeah, but looking at this Mage, you would assume that, hey, this is a deck that can surely win 1 game at least.
They would think that about a lot of decks, and then I think that this game would really just boil down to like the Sylvanas steal and the Giant wasn't really that important for him. The Big Game Hunter was able to keep the tempo up, and then solidifying that Giant behind the Loatheb is really what shut this out.
I really like how Anaro was able to use his Big Game Hunters, both of them, in both games. Like, this handlock proved to be a very difficult deck to play against, and he was able to put himself in this situation where Solid right now, well, he knows, like, how much damage is there, even 16 plus, well, Fireball is going to hit the 8-4.
Fireball's a 0-0. Yeah, so it's going to bug game out again, but it's not going to be enough to keep this board position clear. Just so much pressure. Let's jump back into it. Wow, that bug. I wonder how on earth that causes that.
I'm sure it's going to get fixed at some point.
That's just how it works. Let's jump back into the game as quickly as we can. Still at 30, but again, just he's out of cards versus a full grip.
Yeah, no cards, a silence, no secrets. This board is getting cleared, but it doesn't even have to. There is no single card that Mage can top deck. Even the portals are out. So, like, getting a possible Deathwing from a portal.
Yeah, you could just have a Deathwing in here.
Yeah, well, like in the deck, possibly. He had Ragnaros. But for now, it's all, this match is Anaro's. He can do whatever he wants, just trade however he wants, develop Dr. Boom, do whatever.
I'm pretty sure you could just close his eyes and click cards at this point and probably win. Not the most efficient trades, but again, I just don't think it really. Maybe he did close his eyes. So just doesn't really make that much. Even this game's just too much. It's just too much at that point. Wow. So Anaro,
what a match!
Gonna take this match after all. 3 games to 2. That Mage deck, like you said, just. At the end of the day, it was his demise.
And Anaro is actually going to advance to the top 8. So I'm not sure if he's the first player, but he's definitely a notable player advancing to top 8. Anaro, he qualified for this event. He went for the qualifiers, 250 people. He got there, he played, he went through ties, he went through solo, and now he's one of the top 8 players. That's pretty sick.
Definitely been putting up some good stuff here. I like the way his decks are built. 2 Big Game Hunters I think is a little ambitious, but coming into a field like this, you're going to have to take risks when you're against other players who are extremely good. And if he feels like in this sort of situation he doesn't have as big of an edge as he would, say, like in an open bracket where you're not playing against a field stacked full of professionals, I would be fairly comfortable taking a risk with something like 2 Big Game Hunters, because when they pay off, they're going to pay off in spades.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And then with 2 Big Game Hunters, you are in a situation where you should be able to win at least 1 game with that deck. And that was the plan that worked. Like even if the previous in the mirror match, he was in a very good spot most of the time because of those two big game hunters. So Sottle is not out yet. Sottle will have to play one more match. If he wins, he will advance as well. If he loses, he's out of this tournament. But what players, what games? I really enjoyed it. I'm super excited.
Yeah, Anaro's lineup, I want to talk a little bit about it because of the way it's constructed. You notice every single one of his decks has some sort of risk assessment to it. With something like the Paladin, he's got Knife Juggler, he's got Muster for Battle. He's looking to avoid things like Unleash the Hounds and against that sort of board position. He's looking to avoid things like Explosive Trap. It's really aimed at, again, doing exactly what it did. Apply a little bit of early pressure, keep that board lead, and then scale into its late game threats. That plan worked out great for him against that mage deck. And so, do you take a look at his next deck?
We're talking about the Paladin for Anaro.
Yeah, we were talking about the Paladin.
Then he has Handlock with double BGH.
Yeah, he had Handlock, double BGH, and then just the mage deck. Like all of his decks have some sort of risk assessment to them, where they have like really big targets for certain weaknesses that are in their lineup. But he's doing a good job at having. It's sort of like this is another approach to Conquest where you have a balance. So you're just trying to get all of your decks to line up against a favorable matchup. And I think it's a good approach right now, but there definitely is a lot to be said about the very polarized style of Conquest that we've seen, where people are playing one type of deck again that doesn't have a target on its head.
Yeah.
And how does someone have a lineup that beats 3 times in a row of the same kind of strategy? And we're seeing lots of different success in Conquest open so far, and this is just another example of that.
Yeah, so Conquest, a format that's really similar to Ladder. You want to randomize decks, you want to randomize the strategies you have, and apparently it works. It worked for Anaro. Even though Sottle has a similar approach with like this mage being a bit more aggressive or like minion based. He doesn't have really an aggressive deck because he has Handlock, he had a Druid. Druid was aggressive.
Yeah, he's the Mech Mage.
No, Mech Mage was Anaro was Mech Mage.
Yeah, Sottle had the Druid deck. And he was focused more so on the mid range and control aspects.
And the mid range got actually countered by Handlock there in that situation. Yeah. All right, so that will be it for this match. I'm not sure who's playing next match, but guys, give us the feedback. We love feedback. Tweet at us at Gfinity, at NimshTV, at That's Admirable. And I guess right now we are going to go for a short break, and after that we'll continue with the matches. Stay tuned.